Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mike Hunting Withrow. Hope you're ready for the show today. We're going to be discussing the White House. Will they invite the Philadelphia Eagles? Will President Trump invite the Eagles after the Eagles have turned them down prior? Clay Travis with a report that he got from Washington. Massive decisions coming up. I've got 3 of them that are a bit outside the box, but they're for Super Bowl teams that have a clear path to battle for the Lombardi Trophy. Plus, the very latest with the scandals and allegations involving the NBA and college basketball and wagering illegally. That's straight ahead here on Hot Mic. And while you're here, we hope you'll subscribe and also comment and like the page here at the OutKick YouTube channel. So, Chad, we have a very, I think, simple and reasonable and patriotic stance on this. If you're invited to the White House as a team that has won a title, you go. This dates back to whenever the Philadelphia Eagles last won and decided they weren't going. And since then, there hasn't been a team that's won the Super Bowl that has. I guess you could say there hasn't been the invitation for that to happen. But here's hoping that it does. And by the way, it still can, according to Clay Travis, who had this yesterday. White House source, Philadelphia Eagles have not rejected the White House invite. The reports that have gone viral on social media are fake news. The White House has not even sent the official invite to the Eagles yet. So there's Clay saying, well, you can't reject an invitation that doesn't exist. And the last time the Eagles rejected the invitation, it was rescinded officially by President Trump and the White House. Semantics, I guess. Here's hoping that the invitation is extended and that they accept.
There's been a few wedding invites and different events, baby showers, other events, anniversary parties that I wanted to deny the invitation before it was even sent. You know, get out ahead of the story.
I will not attend.
I'm busy. I'm not unavailable. Don't even bother sending it. But the way an invite goes is you can't say no to the invite until the invite is extended by someone. So good job by Clay Travis on breaking the story because he got it directly from the horse's mouth, the White House, who said we haven't even extended an official invitation to the Philadelphia Eagles to visit the White House yet. Here's a couple things that I hope happens here. One, I hope that President Trump extends an invitation and lets bygones be bygones with that 2018 team, which was a long time ago at this point, that he extends the invite to the Eagles. He was at the game. He's a huge sports fan. He's around a lot of sporting events. I hope he honors them by inviting them to the White House for the little, show and dance, dog and pony show.
Get the jersey.
These team champions get when it happens. Get all those things. I hope he does that, and he's the bigger man about doing it. And I hope the Philadelphia Eagles, which Clay is reporting also and others are, that the Eagles have come out and said, yeah, we're excited about it, and we hope to get the invitation. So that's what I hope happens here. And Hutton, you're right. Here's an official stance of mine. I love history of all kinds, especially American history. I value and respect the office of the presidency. It's a big deal if you get a chance to meet a president. Spoke with our guy Dan Dockich on Don't At Me this morning. He talked about his memories of his 1987 team, winning the national championship and getting a chance to go to the White House with his Indiana basketball team to meet President Ronald Reagan and how he still remembers to this day. And it was a great moment. And he even talked about Indiana people in the White House coming up and shaking their hands because they were so excited to visit with the team that just won the national title. Those are special memories. Those are special opportunities. So I don't care if you don't like the president at all, if you didn't vote for them, if you don't agree with a lot of their policies, whatever it may be. You get invited, you go. If Joe Biden invited OutKick and me and Hutton and everyone here to the White House to honor us for some journalism award that we won or whatever.
Can you imagine?
That'd be incredible. The Walter Cronkite Man of the Year, Jonathan Hutton. If we all get invited because Hutton wins Walter Cronkite Man of the Year to the Biden White House, you go. You go. You shake the president's hand. You say thank you. And if the president wants to ask you, hey, what do you think about this move and this move, this move? If you want to be honest with him and say, well, this is where I disagree with you, fine. There's your chance. You can disagree with the president. It's America. That's a beautiful part of our country. You can do that. You also should respect the office of the presidency. And I would just advise anyone, I would tell my children this. If the president of the U.S. invites you to do something, drop everything else and go do it. Yeah. And go shake the president's hand and do it, especially if the president and the White House wants to honor your achievements, like a NFL champion, for instance. Do it. It's pretty simple. And that goes for everyone, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of what you think about any president. There have been presidents I've disagreed with. I didn't agree with Joe Biden on a lot of things, on most things. Joe Biden invites me to the White House, I'm going. Had Kamala Harris won. Kamala Harris invites me to the White House, I'm going. I'm shaking President Kamala Harris's hand and accepting whatever honor she wants to bestow upon me.
Well, maybe
knighthood, Hutton. Maybe
it's the highest office.
Maybe knighthood.
Knighthood.
The only time I would say don't go to a sitting head of state's office is if it's Russia and you think that Putin's going to poison you and his people. Then, stay away.
You think it's a setup.
If you're the guy opposing Putin in Russia, running for president against him in a smear campaign, then probably don't accept the invitation to go to his palace.
Yeah.
At that point in
stay
Moscow.
Away if you're
that's the only
AJ
time
Brown
I'd say stay away from it. Yeah.
Saquon.
Right. If King Charles in England wants to knight us, then we'll fly across the pond and we'll go get knighted.
With the corgis. Should AJ bring his book? I think he absolutely should.
I think it'd be a great photo op.
Yeah.
If they could get...
You think Trump will hold it like the Bible?
Yeah, well, President Trump and him both looking at the book with inquisitive eyes.
He just holds it up like the...
About seeking inner excellence. AJ Brown and him next to each other, both holding up the same book. That'd be good. Past page 2, the LeBron James page.
The LeBron James rule, yeah. Can you flip at least to page 5? And AJ actually had notes and highlights and all kinds of stuff. I mean, he actually, I think, reads the book.
You don't want to trip LeBron up with tough questions like, what's your favorite part of the Godfather trilogy?
Yeah, what's your favorite line?
You said it's your favorite movies from the Italian guy. What's your favorite part of the movie?
What's your favorite line?
Oh, my gosh, so many. So many.
And then the chess, and then you had, there's several different things he's claimed to be a pro in. But it just
chess.
So many. But instead of he didn't say so many lines. He had a weird answer to it. I can't remember what it was.
So many moments.
Phrases. That was it.
So many phrases.
So many classic or famous phrases.
So many scenes. So many views that I could go into right now, like that great one that happened in, I think, New York City. Great shot of that one. Terrific phrase was said during that moment,
and the dude doubled down on it. So which one?
Yeah. The one that happened in Italy.
So which one?
The Italian guy asked him, he's like, didn't they go to Italy in one of them? That's the one. That's the one, sir.
That would be the one, LeBron.
Let me placate to you and your countrymen and say the one in Italy. That's my favorite. So beautiful, Italy.
Oh, LeBron. Chad, so to the White House, I think likely go the Philadelphia Eagles. I think you extend that knowing that the team's going to show up. And, throughout COVID, that also hindered several teams like Brady and the Bucks and others who won the title. So who's next up to win the Lombardi Trophy? I've got 3 big decisions that are ongoing right now that I think in a massive way will direct the path of these 3 organizations and really the stars involved here. Number 1 for me is how did the Cincinnati Bengals handle the offseason of surrounding Joe Burrow with the necessary star power that he deserves and should have, and they should want to keep. Bengals, they have Burrow in his prime. So now what? He's already called them out. And for good reason, stating that, hey, other teams have exactly what's needed here. Why can't we? We've got the cap space. Here's the exact quote. We have the cap space to get it done. I want to make it happen. Everybody involved, Trey, T, Jamar, Mike Gesicki, we all want to stay together. When you have guys who are motivated like that, I think you can get those things done. Now, here's where it gets weird. The Cincinnati Bengals.
This is a public shaming tour, by the way.
No doubt.
That cannot be stopped. And I kind of love it with Burrow, given the history of that organization. But we've seen this in media some, too. Charles Barkley and others, they kind of negotiate their television contracts in public because they'll just answer honestly to any question about what's being thrown around. There's some risk involved when you do any of that, and that's what some media members are doing. And I think with Joe Burrow, I don't think there's risk here because either the Brown family has already decided to do it or they're not. I don't think they're going to be publicly shamed into doing it.
And think about
even if he's trying to do that.
What they've said about T. Higgins in the past. Like we can't pay everybody. Now they've said that again when they received questions about Trey Hendrickson. And of course, he's like, I would have liked to have known that before me and my agent get going in negotiations prior to free agency. Would like to have some respect. I'm paraphrasing. But here's the deal. Burrow's willing to restructure and kick the can down the road. The Bengals have not restructured to where they're pushing money in the future in over 10 years. Think about how many headlines of quarterbacks that have done this. The Saints have done it nearly 4 times with Drew Brees. We certainly saw it with Mahomes. Brady did it a number of times.
He did it at least twice.
The Bengals have not done that in 10 years. And Burrow is saying that publicly. What do they do with it? They already have $60 million roughly in cap space. They have room. And they're going to pay Jamar Chase big money. $40 million a year. T. Higgins can be franchise tagged again. And then Trey Hendrickson, what do you do with the star pass rusher? Burrow's also
leading sack guy in the NFL.
Yeah, Burrow's also mentioning Mike Gesicki, saying, hey, he needs to be back at tight end. He's really a receiver, more of a receiver than tight end, but a good piece of their offense. And Burrow said you can just push money back into the contract. That lowers the cap hit. And then when you get back to the end of the contract, you can restructure it and convert it to a signing bonus. You can also just take less money. He said that. You can also just take less money. The Bengals got to get this done because they are in an elite quarterback in his prime who was staring down a losing season and still put up the best numbers of his career and was at least mentioned for most valuable player in the NFL, has a star power around them, and the defense lets them down. They fired their defensive coordinator. They have to capitalize right now. Kansas City's vulnerable. We saw that. The Bills don't get it done on the road in the postseason. The Bengals need to get it done with Joe Burrow. That is priority number one, and I think the biggest headline that we're not talking about enough going into the season that is Super Bowl caliber worthy of discussion right now. We're discussing a lot of the Browns, the Titans, and this is the time of year to do that. They're sitting atop the draft. Who's drafting low? Well, Cincinnati should be drafting much further down. And Burrow's right. And I love the fact that he's willing to go out and just say it like, hey, why can't we pay everyone?
Well, it's not.
We should be.
Yes. And there are times when an employee would say something like this, right? Like, hey, spend all the money, right? To the boss, to the owner of the company or whatever. Like, spend all the money. That's what you should be doing, is spend as much money as possible and pay all my buddies that are on this team and do that. There are times where I hear that and I can understand a little bit of a snicker. Like, okay, the Dallas Cowboys, for instance. Like, I don't care who Dak Prescott wants as head coach or a teammate or what. Like, go win a Super Bowl. And then I care about what you want, right? Or be the best player in the league year after year or whatever. Like, earn it. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'd want to make that guy happy. And Dak Prescott, I don't feel that way about Dak Prescott with the Cowboys. Not that he's bad, but I don't feel like he's got the clout to say, this is what, Jerry, you need to be doing, paying the team, and this is the coach I want to play for. This is how we're going to go about being successful. Do it. The other one is LeBron James and the Lakers. I don't just snicker. I flat out laugh, uncomfortably laugh when I hear about, well, you want to draft Bronny to make LeBron happy. And, LeBron wants this, and you don't want to piss LeBron off by trading for Luka and getting rid of his buddy Anthony. And I'm thinking, who cares? LeBron James brought one title to the Lakers, and it was in a COVID year, in a bubble that everyone forgets. No one hardly remembers that title for LeBron. I get that he's a legend in the game. All right? He's also old. So he's not going to be there for 4 or 5 years. So that's not the young talent or the franchise player that I'm saying, yes, I'm going to listen to this guy. Let's go all in with him on what he wants to do. You know who is that guy? Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's that guy. Joe Burrow's got that moxie. He's got that ability. He's gotten a bad organization to the Super Bowl one time already. He's gone deep into the playoffs another time. Yeah, they had a bad year, but he didn't.
Right.
Their offense didn't.
I mean, 5 times.
He was good.
5 different times in the season, they scored more than 30 points and lost.
Point being,
I mean, think about that.
That's a dude that if I'm the Brown family, I'm like, all right, chips on the table. You know what? I trust you. Go win it. Here you go. Trey Hendrickson, boom, done. Jamar Chase, boom, paid. T. Higgins, boom, franchise tag. Hey, we got a little money left over. Who else should we bring in? Oh, we need another pass rusher. We need this on defense to help shore up the defense. Sure, boom. Let's bring in one other guy. Now you got 2 to 3 years. Go do it. Tough AFC? Don't care. I'm paying you. I'm restructuring. I'm doing everything possible. Now it's on you guys, the players and the coach, Zach Taylor. Go do it. I'm totally fine if I'm an owner putting that trust in giving Joe Burrow what he wants. I'm not saying that about many players in the NFL. There's a handful of players that I would listen to. Hutton, he's one of them.
And he's not asking for much. He just wants the same players back for another year. He wants to run it back, Henderson's the one that's underpaid. That would be putting it mildly here. Pay me or trade me ultimatum. Good for him. I mean, he's
Hendrickson, you're saying?
Henderson, yeah. Higgins could be traded after he's franchise tagged. We saw that with Devontae Adams, for instance. But can you flip Henderson for a second-round pick, for instance? That type of thing. And then there's Jamar Chase, who's going to command an insanely large sum of money, but the dude backs it up. I mean, the numbers in his performances, he won the Triple Crown this year. He led the league in receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. It's not like this is a year where they didn't put up numbers, and that's the reason why they sucked. It was the opposite. These dudes actually balled out, and they still lost because of just how horrendous the defense was, and at times, how bad the offensive line was playing. At times.
And because that Lou Anarumo is no longer the defensive coordinator.
That's right. He's going to command a $40 million plus, and I think Higgins could probably get 30 if he hit the open market. But again, there's guaranteed money, and then there's big money, and the Bengals don't normally pay it. They don't have a full scouting staff. The coaches do some of that. They've added more to it recently, but the coaches do a lot of the scouting during the draft process, or have been known to do so. They didn't have an indoor practice facility for years.
They do now, right? They just built one.
Yeah.
So there aren't, even with the guys who are capable of doing this, to have the public shaming tour, as I've called it, that are able to go on that.
Yep.
Even with those guys, you still have to really be selective about when you choose to do this over the course of your career. I think Joe Burrow's playing it perfectly. I think now is the time.
Moment for his career.
And now is the time. And he knows what he's doing. And I think this is all very calculated, and it's very smart on his part. And with a lot of people, I'd say, oh, maybe you overplayed your hand. Not this guy. I think he's playing it perfectly. And I hope his ownership listens to him and does it. And Hutton, if they do, I kind of like this whole, hey, man, on you now. Go do it, right? Like, you're the alpha dog. You're a great player. Still very young. Go make it happen against this lineup of AFC powerhouses.
And those quarterbacks in the AFC. Yeah, it's final point. It's really on Zach Taylor. Zach Taylor is absolutely rooting for this to happen. That's his chance to
and he knows also if it happens and they're not great immediately, then he's out. He's going to be the first fall guy with that.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree. And again, Burrow's in his prime. This is when you make your Super Bowl status. This is when your legacy is, in concrete. This time of his career, and right now he's not making the playoffs.
Nope.
In a great year for the offense where they're just dominating. Speaking of dominating, number 2 for me, Myles Garrett, and who bites and buys Myles Garrett. Now, the Browns are doubling down and saying that they're not going to trade him. They have no intention of trading the top pass rusher on the edge for the last, 5-6 years now. Their general manager, Barry. So since Myles Garrett's made these public comments and requested a trade back in February, or earlier this month, I should say, early February, his quote to ESPN was, speaking with management at the Browns, this is from Myles Garrett, speaking with management at the Browns, I don't feel like our future is aligned with winning right now. So here's Andrew Barry being asked about it. And I say the big thing that we're aligned on is everyone wants to win. Everybody's frustrated with last year. Of course, they finished 3-14. These conflicts normally don't end well. And I would say especially in Cleveland, where they're going to have a rookie quarterback. They've got the contract of Watson, and they're trying to maximize their number 2 overall pick to the best of their ability. And then there's Myles Garrett, who's a Pro Football Hall of Famer, and he wants out. Was someone willing to buy in to the maximum amount and trade a future first-round pick or, a haul this year and next year to get a guy that's going to come in and is going to produce and be available? Who might that team be? Chad, in this year's draft, I'm thinking with it being a down year, this is the year to do that if you have a high pick. Some people are saying, 12 players right now are graded with a true first-round grade? If that's true, and it's such a down year for the NFL draft, go improve. I mean, this is one of those guys that truly impacts Super Bowl caliber expectations. There's not many of them that you can just drop in and say he's going to go and he's going to produce X amount of sacks, or he's going to quarterback pressures. He's going to affect the quarterback. You can count on it. He's that guy. This might be the draft where I truly consider giving up a very high pick for him.
Well, and that would be my question, though. Like, I'm trying to find the right suitor, Hutton, in this, because you say a very high pick. What's a very high pick?
Well, I'm just saying, even if I have a high pick and I can go and get a quote-unquote elite player, to me, we're talking about Cam Ward as one of those players, and I don't view him in the same lens as quarterbacks of last year. I'm simply saying I can trade for Garrett, who's going to impact my roster more than what one of these guys will be doing.
Right. And see now, and I'm looking at that and thinking the Buffalo Bills, right? Like, who's a team that needs to get over the hump that maybe someone like that could help them defensively be a better defense? Right. He's going to make anyone exponentially better on defense. And I'm looking at 11, 12, 13 in the draft. 49ers, Cowboys, Dolphins. You really have to get to 49ers to get to any team where I'd say they could be a contender for a Super Bowl next year.
Well, I think
right before that, I'm like, no, the Saints, no. I think
Bears. You put him on Miami's defense again. Put him on Miami's team. That's a drastic change for them.
Yes,
that's
and that's my point. So when you get to that, is that considered a high first round pick? Dolphins at 13. If you were to give that up,
yeah. But I see that's the value though. If you're trading this year's pick is so much. It's still a first round pick. It's lower though than what it normally is, but again, they're saying they're not trading him. We'll see, because this guy is saying, I want out. We're not aligned. And
we know how these things usually turn out.
He's a pretty serious guy when it comes to that.
Yeah, and we know how these usually go.
Finally, Chad.
Team says they're not going to do it, and then the guy's demanding a trade, and eventually he's traded.
He's traded. Finally, Stafford's franchise-changing decision for the Rams and for the team that could possibly trade for him. He's in Indy's, his agents in Indianapolis with permission to go around and get potential offers and talk with teams on the prelims of what could be a trade that's coming up for the top quarterback that would be available this offseason. Top 10 quarterback in the league. Fantastic talent. Great leader of an offense. And again, a guy that you want the football in his hands, especially, we've seen it. He shows up late in seasons, and he puts the Rams in the postseason. He's a Super Bowl winner. We saw what he did in Detroit, despite it being Detroit. Which team is willing to give up, a possible high pick? I don't think it's not a first-round pick to me, and then pay him, because the Rams are conflicted on how much they want to pay him, because he's 37 years old, just turned 37, and they don't want to overload their cap structure moving forward with all the money that would be due. I think they're looking for a stopgap to, be in line for another development quarterback, another quarterback for McVay to get his hands on and make the next franchise quarterback. I would re-sign him. I would re-sign him and go for one more. The Rams have been close. Last year, speaking of 2023, I felt like they were a year ahead. This year, they're back in it, and they're in the snow, and a drive away from beating Philadelphia.
28-22.
I don't move away from what I have, despite them. I mean, this is also a year where they can move away from Cooper Kupp. That's a franchise-changing offseason, and Stafford's leading the way, and it's a surprise because we're sitting here in February. We weren't talking about this in January.
Well, let's talk about the team with the number 1 overall pick, with the Titans, who need a quarterback. Not giving up the number 1 overall pick, but the Titans pick in the second round at 35.
Yeah, that's the pick you would flip.
Third pick of the second round. Are you doing that and paying Matthew Stafford $50 million?
Yes, because I think if you're Tennessee, you have an owner who is demanding to not just improvement, but I mean they were winning 6, 7, 8 games at the time that she fired John Robinson or Mike Vrabel, and said that wasn't good enough. Well, you need veteran leadership at quarterback because you're going to have a very young team and a young offense. I would trade the second-round pick, knowing that there's an edict to have draft capital in Nashville. You better have picks. Well, then you just trade down from 1 and you get a haul for the number 1 overall pick. And then you replace that pick plus some. Future picks as well. And
likely replacing with those picks with offensive guys to help Matthew Stafford.
Sure. A right tackle.
A right tackle, a receiver, possibly.
Yes.
I mean, you go down the list. Tight end.
Pass rush.
There's a lot of needs on offense for the Titans.
You could move down. It doesn't have to be a big jump or a big fall back. You know, the Giants, if they want to move up from 3 to 1, they're doing that to get ahead of Cleveland. There's value in that jump. So, yes, they could get more than the 35th overall pick in value, and they could have Matthew Stafford to show for it if the Rams aren't going to pay him. That's a scenario I like for Tennessee. And, again, it's the type of guy they need to go and just be able to manage a bad situation. They're able to talk about one-score games. There's the guy that flips the script for you and actually goes and gets the football late in the game and isn't going to throw the pick or isn't going to go 3 and out. He's going to maneuver you down the field with Calvin Ridley and with a running back duo that is capable of helping you out. I like, in theory, I like the way that's going. There's a lot of moving pieces to this because you have to pay him. They want big money. And, I mean, right now he's, $27 million or $29 million? It's ridiculous compared to what we're seeing from other quarterbacks.
We've seen big turnarounds in NFL from a team being, bad to good, right? Or at least getting close to the middle, then being great.
Yes.
It would be a pretty dramatic swing for the Titans going from the worst team in the league, number 1 overall pick, to a team that Matthew Stafford would consider finishing his career with. But again...
So it's the plan. No, let me also add in one more thing.
It doesn't have to. That doesn't mean like he's going to. He probably knows they're not going to compete for the Super Bowl in 2025.
Right.
If he takes it. But if there is hey, we can flip this number 1 pick and get this, and this, and we got so much room under the cap.
And we're going to pay you.
And we're going to pay you top dollar by 2026.
Got Ridley under contract for 2 more years.
We firmly believe in this division. We're winning this division.
3 more years. You've got.
Or we're going to be right there.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, and by the way,
it's not a juggernaut of a division you're in.
You can be the face of the franchise as we open the stadium.
Yeah,
that's not a public discussion.
I don't know how much Matthew Stafford would care about that.
Well, I mean, I think he wants. I think the Giants make sense too in the trade department. I
think that makes a ton of sense for Titans business salespeople.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like that for them. I don't know that it appeals to Stafford.
I'm just saying,
just tell me where we play our home.
What
games.
do the Rams want in return for Stafford? I'm not trading number 1 overall for him, right? I'm not trading the number 1 overall pick for 3 years of a quarterback, maybe 2 of 3, right?
Yeah.
I'll trade the second round pick knowing I can trade out of 1 and get the pick back plus some more supplements. I
do not hate it. It's also so risky because just like Aaron Rodgers seemed to be still playing at a very high level
you want
when
Cam
he finished
Ward
up
or
in Green Bay.
Stafford, which is more risky for this group, for this management group?
I think the ceiling is so much higher with Cam Ward than it is Matthew Stafford. And just the Stafford thing is he's going to be great compared to Cam Ward immediately.
Right.
But you're pairing him up with a roster that's not great. And you just know you can't play like no risk it, no biscuit. I get it. You can't play ball like this. but you're one injury away from a guy of his age not recovering from it.
Sure.
Aaron Rodgers is the perfect example. Aaron Rodgers was great when the Jets signed him. High hopes. Super Bowl contender. Tears his Achilles on play number 4 of the season. Yeah. And watching him this year, he was a shell of himself. His stats were fine. He still could process quickly. He's got the arm. He can't move below his waist. I mean, you could tell from the first time he was rushed against the 49ers, he wasn't getting away from anybody. The way Aaron Rodgers had gotten away from people his whole career in the pocket.
I mean, there were 59 NFL quarterbacks to start a game in 2024.
Yes.
I mean, you're going to go to your backup.
No doubt. I'm just saying if Cam Ward is the guy or a younger quarterback, they could suffer a big injury, and they're going to come back from it in their 20s and continue playing. But Matthew Stafford could have one more big injury. It's like, I'm almost 40. See ya.
Yeah.
This ain't going to work.
You could also do something like this, by the way, with Derek Carr, potentially. And the Saints may be inclined to pay part of the money because they want to get out of the contract and move on. And they could also get a pick in return. Like, they're more or less buying the pick to get out of the contract of Carr. And they're saying far less about their quarterback than what we're hearing in Los Angeles.
It's a fascinating offseason. I think you've hit, Hutton, on the 3 big things to watch. 2 of them in the same division in the AFC North with Burrow and the public shaming tour and Myles Garrett and his public shaming statement of wanting to be traded from what right now is a terrible organization with the Cleveland Browns. What happens there, and then what happens with Matthew Stafford. And then just the dominoes to fall from Stafford to what are the Saints doing with Derek Carr, where's Sam Darnold going to end up, are the Vikings still an option for him? There's other guys behind them that's going to slot somewhere. Kirk Cousins. Right? I mean, the situation with the Falcons and Penix Jr. and Kirk Cousins, there's a lot to watch.
And then there's the whole theory is that if Stafford's out in Los Angeles, that Rodgers is going to be the next quarterback for the Rams.
Again,
it's just fascinating.
I get that you're getting a discount on the quarterback, but come on.
I know.
And I'm one of Aaron Rodgers' biggest supporters. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks to ever watch play the game.
Again, I would just say this whole discussion, I would pay Stafford.
You pushed the Super Bowl champions on the road who steamrolled everyone in the playoffs late in the year, including the 2-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. You had the quarterback who lost 28-22 in their house with a chance to win that game. And your answer is, let's deal him because he wants more money and bring in Aaron Rodgers. That's a tough sales job to your fan base as to how you're any better by doing that.
I agree with you. It's not the move I would make.
It's like old boy with the Mavs trying to sell the Luka Doncic trade to his fans right now. That's not going well.
Now watch McVay again. You touch the cloak of Sean McVay, you win. Watch them take like a 35th overall pick and turn it into
he's going to be Brock Purdy, but elite.
Ladies and gentlemen, Will Howard.
Tyler Shook is going to look like Aaron Rodgers when he gets the league.
What's Stetson Bennett up to? Isn't he out there?
Great question.
He's back out. He's out there. He's out in Los Angeles. I know he was in rehab or whatever, or at least that was I think they said that, didn't they?
His old coach Kirby Smart had some things to say about Johnny Manziel.
A mental health sabbatical
about Johnny Football, and I'm thinking, you could probably say the same about Stetson Bennett, except he won national titles, legit national titles, unlike Johnny Manziel.
No doubt. Got the Jarrett Bell columnist at USA Today. Speaking of offense and quarterbacks, he's saying that there are, it's an eyesore for the NFL. There's 0 black offensive coordinators hired this cycle. He's going through some of the interview processes. He's got the fact that he's not incorrect here. Like, the path to being a head coach is normally offense. But they have the accelerator programs right now. Chad, you and I know a couple of those former coaches or GMs that are involved in like the faux interview process of the accelerator program when you get in front of not just the owners, GMs, but you go through what is a very realistic interview setup.
Yeah.
And there have been some impressive candidates, but I don't call it an eyesore. This is going to end up helping that. And, they're not far removed from actually starting the process. And by the way, you also have to go out and produce, when you get the opportunity. That's part of it too. It's not just because if you've gone through the process that you're guaranteed a job. You have to put up results. And if your team is not good, That's not going to help you. If you have injuries throughout the course of a year, you're not going to have people make apologies for you. You have to buckle up and do it again next year.
Well, so there's not a lot of nuance here, right? When you're making a headline, the point of a headline is to like reduce what you're saying down to this minimum amount of words to draw eyeballs and to draw people to that story, right? So when part of the story talks about an eyesore for the NFL with this. Now, and I've read the Jared Bell piece. There's not a lot of nuance in the Jared Bell piece either. I'm not trying to say that there is.
Yeah, and that was a quote, I think,
writing.
from...
and that's a quote from someone else.
Rod Graves.
But point being, like, you're trying to, okay, this happened, and now it's an eyesore for the NFL. I just don't buy that because you can't just say, well, the NFL has a race problem because this happened with the lack of offensive coordinators being black. And I just think it's a case-by-case basis. Like, you really couldn't get to the bottom of – because it's a valid question to debate, right? Like, how are there so many black players in the league that are playing and there's still a lack of black coaches? Like, okay, that – is an issue that we can discuss with nuance and discuss further.
Right.
But until you really boil it down to each individual decision by every head coach who made those coordinator hires, who they interviewed, who they had relationships with, why they interviewed that person over this person, and got down to the nitty-gritty of every single individual instance that's happening, then you're going to get more of a nuanced picture of everything going on and not just here's the number, here's the zero, here's why it's not good enough, here's why race is involved.
You make a good point about the headline part of it, because I think the jump to conclusion as you read this and all of a sudden it's perception's reality. It's like whenever the Texans were accused of firing coaches because they were black, and then what did they do? They turned around and hired another minority head coach like a week later.
Yeah.
That's where it irritates me. But I do know, Dave McGinnis is one of those that's involved in the accelerator program interview process. And he says it's phenomenal. But
Rod Graves, by the way, is the executive director of the Fritz Pollard Alliance, who said it continues to be an eyesore.
Yeah, and so he's advocating on behalf of the.
Yeah.
So, but he's also helping with the facilitating what's going on behind the scenes. Now, again, you have to go and produce. That's what happened with Wilson, defensive coordinator for the Titans. He did through this. He was apparently phenomenal in this setup. And then what did the Titans defense do this year? Just because they had injuries, they're not because injured. We're going to make excuse. No, that's just not how it works. We'll ask John McClain about that.
Also, by the way, this is what I would expect Rod Graves to say.
Oh, yeah, but he's advocating on behalf of his...
Of course. This is his job. To advocate. If you interviewed Robert Shapiro in 1994, he would be outraged that O.J. was arrested for murder. And that could be a front-page story, right? Outraged, O.J. would even be charged with murder.
Rod's a good dude.
Says defense attorney of O.J. Simpson.
Right.
Of course, that's who's paying him.
I've met Rod Graves. He's a good dude.
I'm not saying he's wrong or that what he's saying is wrong. I'm saying that's what you're paid to say.
Sure, and it's another off season where he's saying more or less the same thing. Chad, real quick, give me the cliff notes on the headline that you saw from out west with the college basketball and the gambling.
All right, so this guy named Sugar Shane Hennon is a professional. Sugar Shane Hennon, professional sports gambler. He's got a website where he charges $99 for his lock of the day. Like you see a lot, but he charges a lot for it. He is involved in what right now is a 5-person gambling ring that is involved in the Jonte Porter NBA story.
Okay.
And because of the filings or what we know now, it looks like he's turning state's witness and he's going to work a plea deal out to give the feds all of the info on this ring and how many people were bought. This is a Sports Illustrated story. Again, tip of the iceberg. This is from Michael Rosenberg and Pat Forty. This is a pro and college, far-reaching, tentacled story involving multiple players, multiple programs that he was paying to get certain outcomes and point shaving, like the Jonte Porter story, checking himself out of the game with phony injuries to make sure he was under at certain times for picks. And we're just getting started with it. So there's the Cliff Notes version.
Did Jonte Porter turn on this guy, or did this guy facilitate? Like, was he already helping out the feds before? You see what I'm saying? The timeline of it. Did Porter help get this guy? I don't know. I'm curious on the timeline of it. Why it's out now?
I'll just give you what the Justice Department is alleging. The Justice Department alleges Hennon had 5 co-conspirators just for the Jonte Porter scheme.
Gotcha.
So they have him on Jonte Porter, okay? Involved in that scheme, publicly, Timothy McCormick, Mahmoud Molla, Long Phi Bruce Pham, they've all pled guilty, and Amar Awadwa, they've all been charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and conspiracy to influence sporting contests by bribery. The Justice Department has said that Hennon will be charged with wire fraud, conspiracy, and money laundering, but delayed officially charging him because he and his attorney are negotiating a plea.
Okay.
He was caught on a plane in Vegas trying to fly to Colombia. And when the authorities approached him, you know what he said without even being asked? I'm flying there for a dental procedure. And they said, well, you're under arrest. That dental procedure's going to have to wait.
Yeah.
That root canal, that Colombian root canal, that sounds like a euphemism for something.
We're going to get...
What are you doing tonight? I'm getting a Colombian root canal.
There will be no crown for you, sir.
Yeah. Colombian root canal sounds fun.
It's off. What is something necktie?
The Bolivian bow tie?
I don't know.
I probably just said something in the... That's not that at all. From the Carmack McCarthy.
Yes.
Carmack McCarthy movie.